Hey kids, how are you doing? Welcome back to American Textbook Reading. I'm Brian Stuart. Are you ready to go to school? Because that's where we're going in this lesson. We're on lesson 2, time for school. So in this lesson, you will discover rules to follow at school. We're going to talk about rules. What are rules? Well, that's one of the vocabulary words that we're going to discuss. So of course, rules are very important wherever you are in school. Let's get started and talk about the vocabulary. The first word we're going to talk about is class. So if we talk about class, what are we talking about? We're talking about a period of time. It's a period of time to teach a group of students. So when we say class, we can say when. When is your class? So that's what we're talking about with this one. When is your class? My class is at 10 o'clock, or it's from 10 to 11. So my class is from 10 to 11. When is your class? It's a period of time. In that period of time, you are supposed to do certain things. Listen to the teacher. Raise your hand. That's what we're going to talk about in this lesson, those kinds of rules. Well, first of all, where are you when you are in class? When you are in class, where are you? You can say, I'm in school, right? But school is a big building. In that building, there are many smaller rooms. You are in the classroom. Classroom. It's a very easy word because it's the room where you have class, right? It's two words, class, room. It's a room. What kind of room? A classroom. A place in school used to teach a group of students. A group of students, okay? By the way, when we talk about class, we've just learned class is the time that you study with a teacher, but we can also, there's another definition for class, and we could say it's a group of students. So that can also be used as class. How big is your class? How big? Whoops, that's a B. How big is your class? In that way, class is a group of students. So there's two definitions for class. One, when, the period of time. Two, the group of students. So when is your class? That's the period of time. How big is your class? That's a group of students. Now, when you have a class, you're in a classroom. When you are together with your class, you are in a classroom. That's the place where the class meets. That's the place where the class is held. Okay, let's move on. Now, a principal, who is the principal at your school? The principal is the head teacher. Of course, there are many teachers in a school. In your classroom, you have one teacher. But the head teacher means like the chief, right? The top boss or the boss of all the teachers. The person who is in charge of a school. And that's an interesting thing. She is, or he is in charge of. That means that the principal is in charge of a school. They are the person who is like the top boss at the school. The person who is responsible for the entire school. That's the person who makes all the rules, make sure everybody's doing their job, and make sure that all the students are behaving properly. You don't want to go to the principal's office. If you go to the principal's office, that means you're in trouble. So stay away from the principal's office, okay? Be a good student, okay? Hopefully you will not have to go to the principal's office. Of course, the principal is a nice person, right? But unfortunately, part of their job is to talk to the bad students, right? And make sure that they don't do the bad thing again. That's part of their job. So usually you meet your teacher every day, but you don't want to meet the principal every day, okay? You want to stay out of the principal's office. Let's move on. Okay, now we're talking about rule. On the first slide, when we first introduced this lesson, we were talking about rules to follow in school. What is a rule? A rule is instruction. Instruction means that something that an adult or somebody who is in power, they tell you what to do. That's an instruction about what people must do, or must not do. So there are things that you should do in a school or wherever you are at home. There are things that you should not do. Things that we should do, things that we should not do, must do or must not do. Same thing. What are those things? If we look very carefully, we can see some rules. 1, listen. Listen when someone else is speaking. So if you're in your class and another student is speaking, you should listen. Wait till they're finished, then you can talk. But you should listen first. That's a rule. Work quietly at your desk. Don't run around making noise, right? Work at your desk quietly. Don't disturb the other students. That's another rule. Don't disturb. Whoops, where'd the T go? Don't disturb the other students. The other students. Okay, ignore that. Okay, don't disturb the other students. Okay, that's another rule. That's something you don't do. Okay, raise your hand when you need help. That's a very common rule. So these are things that we do. These are things that we don't do. They are rules. Now, when we talk about rules, these are types of responsibilities. We are responsible for following the rules. We are responsible to follow the rules. That is our responsibility. Follow the rules. And responsibility is something that people should do. Something that we should do as students is follow the rules at school. So that is our responsibility. It's something we should do. This teddy bear, okay, something this teddy bear should do is wear a seatbelt, right? No, that's crazy, right? It's just an example. But if you are riding in a car, it's your responsibility to wear your seatbelt. It's your parents' responsibility to make sure you're wearing a seatbelt. It's what people should do. What should you do? Those are your responsibilities. One responsibility is to follow the rules. Why do we follow rules? Why should we follow rules? Because it makes life difficult? No, not just, sure, rules might make life difficult, but there's a more important reason. There's a very important reason we follow rules, and that is to make life fair. When we talk about fair, we mean in a way that is right and honest. In other words, we want to be right means correct. We want to behave in the right way. We want to behave in the honest way. Why? Because that's fair for everybody. One person shouldn't have an advantage over another. We shouldn't take advantage of other people. Take advantage of. If you take advantage of another person, it's because you are lying to them. So you take advantage of their belief in you. You break their trust in you. If you take advantage of somebody, you might steal something from somebody else. This is taking advantage of other people. We shouldn't do that because that causes problems. That causes fights. Other people, their feelings are hurt. If everything is fair, everybody is treated the same way, then everything is fair and everybody is happy. So, if you act in a way that is right and you are honest, everybody will be happy. You will be proud of yourself. Other people will like you because you're correct and you are honest. So everybody is happy. And this, of course, you should be fair. Oh, and of course, when we talk about fair, we also talk about balanced. Okay? Now, follow, I talked about that before. Follow means to obey. So before I taught you guys, follow the rules. Remember, follow the rules because it's your responsibility, right? So we follow the rules because it's our responsibility. Follow means to obey. Obey is also very similar to this situation. This boy is teaching his dog, the rules, sit, right? Stay. And the dog is obeying. The dog is following what the boy is saying. Of course, we're not dogs, but we should also follow the rules because that's fair for everybody else. And it's our responsibility to follow the rules. Okay? So follow your teacher, follow your principal, follow your parents. Okay? They will teach you the rules. And then when you get older, your children will follow you. Okay. Let's take a look at our chart here. Here we have a diagram showing the rules to follow at school. So we follow rules. We can take a look at the picture. What is the picture doing? And we can understand what's going on here. So the teacher here is saying, shh, right? She's going to teach the class some things. So we follow directions. We follow directions. If the teacher says, shh, be quiet, right? She's saying, shh, be quiet. She is telling the class to do something. She is giving directions. So we follow those directions. Okay? So we follow the teacher's directions. Here, what are these two kids doing, right? They seem to be painting something. And they're sharing the paints. They only have one thing of paint, and they're sharing it. They're helping each other. So they're helping others. Another rule to follow is to help your other students. If there's only one thing and you have to share between many people, that's okay. Help each other, right? You can help each other. Maybe you can help prepare things for your class together. You can help your friends and classmates. Okay. Next one, another rule to follow, raise your hand to talk. Don't just talk in the class. If you're in the classroom, don't just start talking. Raise your hand. Then the teacher can say, okay, go ahead. And that, of course, is raise your hand. I have a question. Raise your hand to talk. These girls are following the rules. They are raising their hands because they want to talk. But they don't talk right away. They raise their hand first. Finally, very important rule because you want to be safe. Be safe. Do not run in the hallway. Don't run in the hallway because that's not safe. In fact, many rules are done because we want to be safe. We want to be safe and we want to be fair. There's two main reasons why we follow rules at school. One reason is that we are safe. We don't run in the hallway because if we run, we're going to hit other people. That's going to be dangerous. We don't want to do that. We want to be safe. Another reason to follow rules is so that we're fair. We're fair to other students. We don't talk when they're talking. That's not fair. We should wait our turn. Everybody waits their turn. That's fair. So two main reasons why we follow rules at school. One is to be fair, and to be safe. One is to be safe. Two is to be fair. So if we follow rules, we are safe and we are fair. Okay, right now we're on the part where we match the word to the definition. So these are our words up here, and we need to match them to the definitions down below. Our words are class, classroom, principal, principal, rule, responsibility, responsibility. That's a long word, isn't it? Responsibility. Okay? Fair. Fair. So those are our words. Let's match them to the definition. Number one, in a way that is right and honest. So we talked about this. Behave in a way that is correct or right and be honest to each other. So when we do those things, what are we being? You should be what? You should be fair. Okay? So you should be fair. If you act in a way that is fair, you are being correct, you are being right, and you are being honest. To act in that way, you are being fair. So be fair, right? Be fair to everyone around you. Number two, something that people should do. We talked about this a little bit, right? We said that, one of the things you should do is wear your seatbelt. Another thing that you should do is follow the rules. These are things we should do. They are what? It's a very long word. Do you remember? It is responsibility. So it is our responsibility to follow the rules. It is our responsibility to wear a seatbelt. It is something that people should do. It's their responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's her responsibility. Okay? Whose responsibility is it? What should they do? Number 3, the head teacher. Remember the head, not just teacher, but the head teacher, like the boss, right? The top boss, the person who is in charge of a school, in charge of. Somebody who is in charge of, responsible for the school, they are the person who sets the rules. Remember, you don't want to go to this person's office, right? Who is that person? That is the principal. The principal, okay? Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is a period of time. Remember, I gave you 2 definitions. I gave you 2 definitions for this word. One of them was a period of time. The other one was a group of students who study together, right? But this time we're talking about a period of time to teach a group of students. So we have our other one there too, right? A group of students. What is it? It is, of course, a class. A class is a period of time that you study together. It is also a group of students who study together in the same room. They are the class. Okay, now that leads us to number 5, right? Because now we're talking about a place in school used to teach a group of students. So where does your class meet, right? When it's time for class, where do you go? You go, of course, to the classroom. That's where the other group of students meet. That's where your class meets. And that is where you go when it's time for class, okay? So that would be a classroom. Number 6, an instruction about what people must do or must not do. So remember, there are things you do, you must do. There are things you must not do, okay? And it's an instruction. It's like one instruction. Okay, so one instruction we use singular, but for many instructions, of course, there's always many instructions, aren't there? There's not just one, there's always many, and we use it in the plural sense very often, of course. What do we call that? We call that, of course, a rule. But usually there's not just one rule, there are many rules, right? Some rules tell you what you must do, some rules tell you what you must not do. So a rule that tells you what you must do, raise your hand before speaking. You must do this. A rule that tells you what you must not do, don't run in the hallway. Okay? That's a rule you must not do. So rules tell you what you must do or what you must not do. Okay, let's move on here. We have a chart here. Now, when we talk about school, because our lesson is about time for school, before I said, there are many rooms in a school. A school is a big building. There are many different places in the school. We looked at one of those places. That's a classroom, right? But what are some other places, right? We have our classroom is over here. We talked about that. But what other rooms can we find in our school? Where do you go if you want to read a book? If you want to find a book and you want a quiet place to read that book, you would go to the library, right? And it should be a quiet place. There are rules in the library. Be quiet, right? Don't run. Okay, so this is a library. Now, during school, of course, you go to school for the whole day. You have many classes in the day. You get hungry, right? At noon, you have to go somewhere to eat lunch. Where do you go? You go to the cafeteria. Everybody, cafeteria. Cafeteria. The cafeteria, some places you can buy food. Most cafeterias you can buy food or you can bring your food from home. But where do you eat it? You eat it at a cafeteria with your friends, right? You guys sit at a table, you eat the food in the cafeteria. Where do you go to eat lunch? I go to the cafeteria. Now, of course, after you eat, you might get, busy, or sometimes in the morning too, before lunch. There's a certain time in the school day where the kids go outside and play. Now, you want to have a good place to play, right? You want to have like swings, slides. You want to have fun things to play around on. What do you call that area? That is called a playground, because it's a ground. Ground means area where you play, right? And there's many fun things to do on the playground. You have slides, you have swings, you have bars that you can swing off of. There's many types of things that you can do at the playground. Of course, be nice to everybody on the playground. It's your responsibility to play safe and to play fair, right? Okay. Finally, in the school room or in the school building, you have many classrooms, but you have to go from one classroom to another classroom. Where do you go to do that? You go in the hallway. The hallway is the space between classrooms. It's a wide space, so many students can walk back and forth. And in many schools, also in the hallway, you can find a place to put your bags and your books. And we call this place a locker. So in many schools, the locker, your locker, or the lockers for all the students are located in the hallway. Okay? So that's why hallways are usually very wide at schools. Let's move on. Let's take a look at these pictures and write the word that best fits in the blank. Okay? So we're talking about the place here. What are these places and what are the rules, right? So first of all, we have a place. Here we have a picture of a boy. He's reading a book, right? The rule is do not disturb other people, right? And then over here we have a picture of the place. This is a classroom, and this is be quiet and listen to the teacher. So if these are places, right? What are these? I already said it actually. These are the rules, right? So do not disturb other people. This is a negative rule, what you must not do. Do not disturb other people. This boy, he's not disturbing anybody. He's obeying or following the rules. He's quietly reading a book by himself. He's following the rules. Over here, the teacher is explaining something about the world, even though she has math on the blackboard, okay? But in the classroom, the students are being quiet and listening to the teacher. Be quiet, listen to the teacher. That is something you should do. Maybe she's talking about where math came from, right? Maybe she's talking about ancient Babylonia. Okay, but anyway, so she's being quiet and listen to the teacher. And that is a rule that you should follow in the classroom. Okay, now we've come to our true and false questions. Remember, if the sentence is false, we circle F. If it's true, we circle T. Let's take a look at the sentences here. A classroom is a period of time to teach a group of students. Does that sound right? We have classroom and we have a period of time. So is a room a period of time? That doesn't sound right, does it? A room is a place. A room is a place, not a period of time. So a classroom is a place where you teach a group of students, or used to teach a group of students, right? So this is wrong. We have to change the sentence to make it right. So of course it would be false. Number two, a responsibility. Remember we talked about responsibility. What is your responsibility? There are different types of responsibilities. A responsibility is something that people should do. So for example, a responsibility could be wear your seatbelt. That's something you should do. Follow the rules at school. That's something you should do. So these are responsibilities, right? So this sentence is true. A responsibility is something that people should do. Absolutely. Number three, we talked about a principal before. I was joking. I said you don't want to go to the principal's office. And that's kind of true. You don't really want to go to the principal's office. Usually when students go to the principal's office, they are in trouble. A principal is an instruction about what people must do or must not do. Does that sound right? A principal, remember, is a person. A principal is a person. Sorry about that P, just join these two together. Okay, person. A principal is a person, not an instruction. That doesn't make sense. So this sentence is not true. It doesn't make sense. A person is not an instruction. A person is a person, okay? If we changed principal to rule, then this sentence would be correct. A rule is an instruction about what people must do or must not do. That's true. But we have to change the sentence to make it true, so the sentence is false. Okay, that wraps up the vocabulary section. Let's now take a short break We'll come back and we'll take a look at the reading. Okay, kids, welcome back. Let's go over the reading part together. Now, of course, our subject is time for school, so we're talking about things at school or things to do at school. And we can see at school. So when we're at school, right? When we are at school, there are some important rules to remember. We have to remember the rules. Don't forget the rules, right? In the classroom, during class. This is an interesting sentence. We're using two of our words here, our vocabulary words. In the classroom, the place where you study. During class, the period of time that you study. We must be quiet. So we must be quiet. That's one of the rules that we should remember. We must be quiet. That's one rule. Another rule, listen to the teacher. That's another rule. We should do these things. So there are some important rules to remember. 1, we must be quiet. 2, we must listen to the teacher. Also, we must also be quiet and not disturb other people. Where? In the library. Okay? So at school, there are many different places. At school, we have the classroom. That's one place. We have another place in the library. And there are rules for these different places. In the classroom, 1 rule, we must be quiet. 2, we must listen to the teacher. In the library, we must be quiet also, and we must not disturb other people. So not. Remember, rules are positive and negative. Things we must do and things we must not do. Okay? So it's either we must do it or we must not do it. Those are our rules. Okay, let's move on here. There are other places, of course, in the school that we talked about. Another place is hallway. So we talked about classroom, we talked about library, we can also talk about hallway. In the hallway, what's another rule? We should walk carefully. Walk carefully. Don't run, but be careful about where you're walking. Don't walk into other people, bump into other people, right? Don't do that. Walk carefully. Be careful in the hallway. Watch where you're going. That's a good expression, by the way. Watch where you are going. So, of course, parents and teachers might say this. If you're using your cell phone and walking, don't do that. That's not carefully. Watch where you are going. Look, be careful. Be nice to other people. Consider other people. If you're doing this and you bump into other people, that's not being very fair because you're using your time. You think your time is more important than the other person. That's not being fair. Watch where you're going. Walk carefully. Okay. Another place at school, we talked about classroom, we talked about library, we talked about hallway, also cafeteria. The cafeteria is where we eat our lunch, right? That's where we eat our lunch. It also has rules we must follow when we are in the cafeteria. We have a responsibility to follow rules in all of these places because rules help us be fair. Like I said, one example, when you're in the hallway, walk carefully because if you bump into other people, you're not being fair. You say, I'm more important. What I'm doing is more important than your safety. That's not fair. We should always be fair and follow the rules because rules help us be fair. And remember, they also help us be safe. So there are two main rules there's two main reasons why we follow rules. Of course, we want to be fair. That's very important. We also want to be safe. Okay? So these are important rules, and there are many places that we should follow the rules at school. These rules, of course, help us be safe. That's what I just said on the other slide, right? So they help us be fair. They help us be safe. The principal of the school, okay, the principal, the teachers, and the students should all follow rules. So even though the principal is like the head teacher, they're the boss, they still have to follow the rules too. Everybody follows the rules because you want to be safe and you want to be fair. Should follow the rules to make a happier and safer school. If we follow the rules and if we're fair to everybody, everybody's happy. If we're safe, then people are safe. Of course, we want the school to be a good environment for us to study in, right? We want everybody to be happy at our school. We want everybody to be safe at school. We want everybody to feel that everybody's being treated fairly. So if we follow the rules, these things will happen, and we'll have a happy and safe school. And that's very good. That's what we want, isn't it? Okay, so we've come to our reading chart here. Our reading skill is based on cause and effect. Remember, cause is the action or the condition that happens, the action, and then of course the effect is the result of that action. Our main idea, of course, though, for the reading passage, though, is that we have rules to follow. So we have rules to follow in many different places, in the classroom, in the library, in the cafeteria, in the hallway, many different places. And we have causes, the actions that we do, and then we have the effect. The effects are all the same, but we have different causes. Let's take a look at the causes, and we need to fill in the blanks, of course, in each one. We have 4 blanks and 4 words: happier, quiet, hallway, and library. Let's take a look. One cause: we must be beep during class. What is beep? We must be what? Happier during class? We have to be happier? Even happier than we already are? That's crazy, right? Okay, we have to be quiet during class. Ah, that makes sense, right? That sounds right. We must be quiet during class. That's correct. Okay? Next one, we must not disturb other people where? We must not disturb other people in the happier. That doesn't make sense. Quiet. Hallway. We don't disturb other people in the hallway. The hallway is usually a noisy place. People are opening their lockers like we talked about. They're getting books. They're talking to each other. So it's kind of hard to disturb somebody in the hallway because everybody's already being disturbed. There's so much noise. But what about library? Library is a more important place that we can talk about when we say we must not disturb other people. So we must not disturb other people in the library. And that's the correct one because we have to be quiet and pay attention to everything in the library. Okay. The third one, we should walk carefully in the what? Remember, when we're walking from one class to another class, where are we? We are, of course, in the hallway. So we should walk carefully in the hallway. Okay, these are the causes. These are the actions that we do, right? Now, if we do these things, what is the result? What is the effect? What happens because we do these actions? The effect is we will be beep and safe in school. So that means we will be what? We will be happier and safe in school. Of course, that's what we were talking about. If we're fair and we want to be safe, we follow the rules. And the rules, if we follow these rules, the effect is we will be happier and safer in school. Okay, now let's talk about the reading comprehension questions. How well do you remember the reading? Let's look at number 1. At school, there are some rules to what? To make. So should we make rules at school? The rules are already there. They've already been made. We don't really go to school to make rules. We go to school, when we're at school, we follow the rules. We don't make the rules, we follow the rules. Disturb the rules? That's kind of silly. The rules are not people, they cannot be disturbed. So our correct answer, of course, is to follow. Remember, we follow rules. We obey other people, we follow the rules. That's a good expression. Follow the rules. At school, there are some rules to follow. Number 2, what rule should we follow? Okay, so you just find the answer to question number 1 right there, right? What rule should we follow in the hallway? Now we're talking about the hallway. When we are in the hallway, what should we do? We should listen carefully. No, what are we listening to, right? Remember I said it's very noisy in the hallway. There's nobody really, talking to us or giving us instructions in the hallway. We should listen carefully in the classroom. Not needed in the hallway, not necessary. We should eat carefully in the hallway. Actually, you shouldn't eat in the hallway, right? You should eat in the cafeteria. You can eat in the hallway, but it's a little dangerous, right? Somebody hits you, there goes your lunch is all over your face, right? You don't want that. So you shouldn't eat in the hallway. How about walk carefully? Sure, in the hallway, that's where you walk from one classroom to the other classroom. But you should be careful about how you do it. Don't run. Walk carefully. Watch where you're going. We talked about that before. Okay, number 3. in the library. Now we are in the library, right? Students should do what? So think about that. Remember we talked about different places in the school. In the library, what should we do? In the library, students should eat their lunch quietly and not run. Do you eat your lunch in the library? You should not eat your lunch in the library. If you spill your drink, you'll get the books will be ruined, right? The librarian will be very angry. So don't eat your lunch in the library. In the library, students should be quiet and not disturb others. Does that sound right to you? Sure it does. That's the right answer. Because in the library, many students are reading. They're concentrating. They're thinking about the book. And if you're loud and you disturb them, then they can't concentrate. They can't study. So we should be quiet. Shh. And we should not disturb other students in the library. See, walk carefully and disturb others? That doesn't make sense, right? So that wouldn't be correct. Okay? So we don't disturb others. Do not disturb others in the library. Number 4, we all have a responsibility. Remember our responsibility, the things that we should do. We all have a responsibility to follow rules. That's one of our responsibilities. But why? A, because rules help us be safe and fair. Is that true? Absolutely, that's true. Those are the two things we were talking about. Rules help us be safe. They help us be fair. So it's our responsibility to follow the rules because they help us be safe and they help us be fair. Let's look at B and C just for practice. We all have a responsibility to follow rules, but teachers and the principal do not have to, right? Teachers don't have to follow the rules, right? No, that's not right. Teachers and the principal, everybody follows the rules. There are certain things that people should do and should not do. Teachers have rules too. They come to class on time, right? They don't shout. They shouldn't shout at the other students, right? They should be prepared for their classes. These are rules that teachers have, right? The principal has a rule, very important rule. The principal has to be fair to all the students and all the teachers in making sure they follow the rules. So everybody has rules. Everybody should follow those rules. Let's look at number C. But we do not have to follow rules in the classroom. In the classroom, there's no rules. We can run around and have fun. No, there are important rules we do have to follow in the classroom. We do have to follow rules in the classroom. So, of course, C would not be correct. A is our best answer. Rules help us be safe and fair. Okay. Let's take a look at our chart. Remember this chart? We saw it before. Rules to follow at school. So what should we do at school, right? If our teacher tells us, shh, be quiet, we should do what? We should follow directions. She is telling us to do something, we should follow her directions. Follow directions. The teacher says to do something, you should do it. The teacher says not to do something, you should do it. That you should not do it, it means you're following directions. Okay, what's this? The two students are, what are they doing? They seem to be cooperating, right? They are helping each other. So help others. That's another good rule to follow at school. Help each other. Help others. Down here, what are these girls doing, right? They're behaving well. They're good students. They want to talk, but they don't just talk. What do? They raise their hand to talk. So raise your hand to talk. Another rule to follow at school. Finally, in our last rule that we have in the chart, where are these kids? They're in the hallway. And what are they doing in the hall? Well, they're posing for a picture. But if you're in the hallway and you're going from one class to another class, what should you not do? You should not run in the hallway. Do not run in the hallway. And that's another rule that you should follow. So these are all different rules you should follow at school. So our lesson number 2, we were talking about time for school. We talked about different places at school, right? Classroom, hallway, library, cafeteria, many different places. And sometimes there are different rules for the different places in school. Okay? Well, next time you go to school, think about those rules. Think about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And remember, we follow rules so that we are safe and we are fair to everybody, so everybody's happy and they can stay safe. So you guys, be happy, stay safe. We'll see you next time. Take care.